I am Pastor David Baxley, and I welcome you to join this video study of end time events and a verse-by-verse study of the book of Revelation. I invite you to follow along in this study and to email your questions to me. Email the questions to endtimesandrevelation@juno.com. This study is taken from my book, Understanding the Book of Revelation, and it will cover 25 video lessons. In this lesson, we're looking at Revelation chapter 21, timeline. Time moves back to just after the tribulation, but just before the millennial kingdom. Satan has been chained and locked up in the bottomless pit for 1,000 years. John sees the new city of Jerusalem coming into place on the earth where Jerusalem is located today. Revelation chapter 21, verse 1. Now I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth have passed away. Also there was no more sea. Earth's surface and the sky above the earth had to be purified from the curse of sin before the holy city could be moved into its place. All of the seas are gone. There will probably be rivers and ponds of fresh water, and earth is just one contiguous stretch of land with the city of Jerusalem at the very center. Verse 2. Then I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people. God himself will be with them and be their God. After the land has been cleansed and the city prepared in heaven came down to earth, it appears to sit just where the city of Jerusalem sits today, because this is where the throne of David will sit to rule Israel. It is much bigger than the city today. In the city there is a new temple, which is not a building, but Christ himself. Remember, the tabernacle and later the temple housed the Ark of the Covenant, which represented the presence of God with his people. Christ will represent God's presence in the city. Verse 4. And God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There shall be no more death, nor sorrow, nor crying. There shall be no more pain, for the former things have passed away. Then he who sat on the throne said, Behold, I make all things new. And he said to me, Write, for these words are true and faithful. Everything is different now because the curse of sin is gone. No more pain, no more death, sorrow, or crying. Jesus Christ said that he made everything perfect, and the imperfect is destroyed. This, Christ said, is a promise that you can depend on. Verse 6. And he said to me, It is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give of the fountain of the water of life freely to him who thirsts. He who overcomes shall inherit all things, and I will be his God, and he will be my son. God said, I have completed my promise. The triune God was in the beginning before everything was created. I am the source of life itself, he says. Everyone who accepts Jesus Christ offers salvation by truly believing faith will inherit everything I have and will become my child. Verse 8. But the cowardly, unbelieving, abominable, murderers, sexually immoral, sorcerers, idolaters, and all liars have their part in the lake which burns with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. Everyone with unforgiven sin will be cast into the lake of fire with Satan and will face continual torment and the permanent separation from God. When it talks about these sins, liars, sexually immoral, etc., it is talking about a continuing state of sin. Even if a person had committed one of these or any sin after we are saved, it is already forgiven so that we are not in a continuing state of sin. Verse 9. Then one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls filled with the 7 last plagues came to me and talked with me, saying, Come, and I will show you the bride, the Lamb's wife. One of these 7 angels who will unleash these 7 last plagues told John to go with him to see this new city of Jerusalem. John describes what this beautiful city will look like. Verse 10. And he carried me away in the Spirit to a great and high mountain, and showed me the great city, the holy Jerusalem, descending out of heaven from God, having the glory of God. Her light was like a most precious stone, like a jasper stone, clear as crystal. The glory of God appears as pure light that glimmered like light shining through a very fine diamond. Verse 12. Also she had a great and high wall with 12 gates, and 12 angels at the gate, and names written on them, which are the names of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. 3 gates on the east, 3 gates on the north, 3 gates on the south, and 3 gates on the west. This city has huge walls around it. These walls around the city had 12 gates with the names of the 12 tribes of Israel written on them. 3 gates on the south, 3 gates on the north, 3 gates on the west, and 3 gates on the east. The names of the tribes of Israel represent that Israel will have access to Jesus, who will rule over Israel during this time. Everyone will have access to the throne of David, but God promised that Jesus would reign over Israel forever. Verse 14. Now the wall of the city had 12 foundations, and on them were the names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. The foundation of the wall had 12 sections or layers, and on each layer there was a name of one of the 12 apostles of Christ. This seems to show that the city was built for the New Testament church, the bride, but Israel will have complete access to her king who sits on the throne of authority over Israel. Verse 15. And he who talked with me had a gold reed to measure the city, its gates and its walls. The city is laid out as a square. Its length is as great as its breadth. And he measured the city with the reed 12,000 furlongs. Its length, breadth, and height are equal. Then he measured its wall, 144 cubits, according to the measure of a man, that is, of an angel. John is shown the magnitude of this great city. It's somewhere about 1,400 miles from east to west and about 1,400 miles from north to south, and extends about 1,400 miles into the sky. Verse 18. The construction of its walls was of jasper, and the city was pure gold, like clear glass. The foundations of the wall of the city were adorned with all kinds of precious stones. The first foundation was jasper, the second sapphire, the third chalcedonian, the fourth emerald, the fifth sardonyx, the sixth sardius, the seventh chrysolite, the eighth beryl, the ninth topaz, the 10th chrysoprase, the 11th jacinth, and the 12th amethyst. The 12 gates were 12 pearls. Each individual gate was of 1 pearl, and the streets of the city was pure gold like transparent glass. The walls were pure, translucent gold, and the light of the glory of Christ glistened through them. The foundation was studded with millions of precious jewels. Each of the 12 gates were made from one huge, flawless pearl. The street is made of pure gold like the walls. It is supposed that this one street comes from each of the 12 gates and leads to the throne of David where Jesus sits. Verse 22. But I saw no temple in it, for the Lord God Almighty and the Lamb are its temple. The city had no need of sun or of the moon to shine in it, for the glory of God illuminated it. The Lamb is its light. The glory of God through Jesus is always seen by humans as a bright light. There won't be a need to have a sun or a moon to give us light, because the radiance of God's glory reflected through His Son will be sufficient so that everyone can see. They will be guided by His light. Verse 24. And the nations of those who are saved shall walk in its light, and the kings of the earth bring their glory and honor into it. The term nations are all of the saved except the New Testament church. There will evidently be organization and political leaders in these nations outside the city. Because sin is gone, these leaders will lead perfectly with no self-righteousness or self-pride. They will rule under Jesus Christ and His bride's authority in a way that will bring glory and honor to Him. Verse 25. Its gates shall not be shut at all by day. There shall be no night there. And they shall bring the glory and the honor of the nations into it. For every nation will have access to King Jesus at all times. They love the King and will seek to bring Him glory and honor through all that is done in the nations. But there shall by no means enter it anything that defiles or causes an abomination or a lie, but only those who are written in the Lamb's Book of Life. Summary. John is carried back before chapter 20 to see details about the city that has been prepared for the bride of Christ. John sees that the city has descended to the earth from God's heaven. He describes the beautiful jewels of the foundation, the gates made of a single pure pearl. He sees the walls and a street made of translucent pure gold. The city was 1,400 miles long, wide, and high. The gates were open, giving access into the city and to the king, to the perfect world around it. John sees the source of light for the earth as the glory of God through Jesus. John is told that during the millennial kingdom, because Satan is locked up in the bottomless pit and the curse of sin has been removed, there is no influence of evil found anywhere. What does it mean that the curse of sin is gone? Well, sin brought a curse when Adam had sinned against God. God said that because of the sin, the serpent, which housed the presence of Satan, could no longer stand up, but would have to crawl on its belly. He would be feared and hated by people. In this kingdom, there will be no need to fear any snake, and possibly they'll be able to stand again. The curse given to the woman is that she would be in great pain during her pregnancy, and then in giving birth to her children. It went on to say that she would have a need to be emotionally attached to someone, her husband, and she would have a deep need to follow the leadership of her husband, even though she would want to rebel against it. To the man, he would have to labor hard to make a living. While that struggle in making a living changes through the ages, there is a struggle in making a living. During the millennial kingdom, it will be like it was during the Garden of Eden before Adam and Eve sinned. Adam and Eve were given jobs to dress the garden. Everyone will work in the millennial kingdom, but will do so without stress and difficulties. Because Satan is locked up, no one will be tempted in any way to rebel or hurt or to be selfish. The millennial kingdom will be a perfect place to live.